Hi, my dear students. Today I'll be talking about operant conditioning. And we'll start with the objectives, which is to understand what operant conditioning is, to know what Skinner did, knowing reinforcers with all its types, and interval schedules explanation. Operant conditioning is when people and animals learn to do certain things and do not to others because of the results of what they do. In other words, they learn from the consequences of their actions. Skinner's experiment. Skinner showed how positive reinforcement worked by placing a hungry rat in his Skinner box. The box contained a lever on the side, and as the rat moved about the box, it would accidentally knock the lever. Immediately it did so, a food pellet would drop into a container next to the lever. And for the reinforcement. Reinforcement is the process by which stimulus, for example food, increases the chances that the preceding behavior, lever pressing, will occur again. Primary and secondary reinforcers. Primary reinforcers is like food, water, and adequate warmth and are all primary reinforcers. Secondary reinforcers must be learned. Secondary reinforcers initially acquire their value through being paired with established reinforcers. For example, money. So without money, you can buy anything that's primary. For example, food and water is accessed by secondary reinforcers. Positive and negative reinforcers. Positive reinforcers increase the frequency of the behavior they follow when they are applied. For example, food, fun activities, and social approval. Negative reinforcers increase the frequency of the behavior that follows when they are removed. For example, discomfort, fear, and social disapproval. Rewards. Rewards like reinforcers increase the frequency of a behavior, and some psychologists do use the term reward interchangeably with the term positive reinforcement. But Skinner preferred the concept of reinforcement to that of reward because the concept of reinforcement can be explained without trying to get inside the head of an organism to guess what it will find rewarding. Punishments. While rewards and positive reinforcements are similar, punishments are quite different from negative reinforcers. So basically, punishments and negative reinforcers are not similar, like the way rewards and positive reinforcers are similar. Both negative reinforcers and punishments are usually unpleasant, but negative reinforcers increase the frequency of a behavior by being removed. Punishments, on the other hand, are unwanted events that, when they are applied, decrease the frequency of the behavior they follow. Continuous and partial reinforcement. Continuous reinforcement, or the reinforcement of a behavior every time the behavior occurs. For example, the rats in the Skinner box receive food every time they press the lever. Partial reinforcement. A behavior is not reinforced every time it occurs. People who regularly go to the movies, for example, may not enjoy every movie they see, but they continue to go because they at least enjoy some of the movies. Interval schedules. If the amount of the time of the interval that must elapse between reinforcements of a behavior is greater than 0 seconds, the behavior is on an interval schedule. Reinforcement is a rule of reinforcements. There are two different types of interval schedules: fixed interval schedule and variable interval schedule. These schedules affect how people allocate the persistence and effort they apply to certain tasks. And we will begin with fixed and then variable interval schedule. A fixed interval schedule is a fixed amount of time, for example, 5 minutes between reinforcements. Suppose a behavior is reinforced at 10 o'clock. If the behavior is performed at 10:02 o'clock, it will not be reinforced at that time. However, at 10:05, reinforcement again becomes available and will occur as soon as the behavior is performed. But in a variable interval schedule, varying amounts of time go by between reinforcements. For example, reinforcement may occur at 10 o'clock, then again at 10:07, which is a 7 minute interval, then not again until 10:08, 10:08, which is a 1 minute interval, and then not again until 10:20, which is a 12-minute interval. Ratio schedules. If a desired response is reinforced every time the response occurs, there is one-to-one relationship, or a ratio of response to reinforcement. For example, one response, one reinforcement. If, however, the response must occur more than once in order to be reinforced, there is a high response to reinforcement ratio. Extinction in operant conditioning. In operant conditioning, extinction is like classical conditioning. Extinction sometimes occurs in both of them, but in operant conditioning, extinction occurs because the events that have previously followed the stimulus no longer occur. Shaping and chaining. And we'll start with shaping, which is a way of teaching complex behavior and in which one first reinforces small steps in the total activity. And chaining. Chaining, each step of a sequence must be learned and must lead to the next until the final action is achieved. The steps create a response chain. Programmed learning. Programmed learning assumes that any task, no matter how complex, can be broken down into small steps. Each steps can be shaped individually and combined to form the more complicated whole. And this is the homework for you today, which is what are the difference between interval schedules and ratio schedules, and how are shaping and chaining linked. Thank you all for listening. I really hope you did understood the lesson. Thank you all. I love you.